All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. It's 9:30, so we want to go ahead and get started. We have a lot of ground to cover, and I know we've still got more people coming in, closing in on 300 attendees right now. So first and foremost, thanks for joining us. This is the 2020 Esri ArcGIS User Seminar Series virtually. We did 3 of these on site, and we're doing this for our folks in Nashville and Tallahassee and the rest of the Southeast that we weren't able to go to in person. So we're glad though that we can also open this up to a lot of people who weren't near a seminar site, and so you're able to join today. So thank you first and foremost for joining us. My name is Keith Cook, and let's see if we can get this to advance, because I'm sure it will now. There we go. My name is Keith Cook. I'm an account manager here in the Charlotte region based in Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah, and my name is William Myers, and I'm a solution engineer, and I'm based in the Southeast and out of Orlando, Florida.
All right. So again, this is our Amplify Your GIS seminar series. We're really glad that you're able to join us for this. I know it's a challenging time, especially working from home for many folks and being inundated with additional requests from work. So and Will and I know this personally, the work does not stop piling up just because you're going to a webinar. So we appreciate you taking the time to join us. So a couple of housekeeping notes. Obviously, we're doing this meeting through Zoom. Your line is muted, so if you want to yell at us, that's fine. We can't hear you. But if you do have questions, we do want to know what they are. So you'll have a chat feature that you can see at the bottom of your screen, and our moderators will be able to get back to you. We're going to have a few polls today, so we want you to participate. It'll be interesting for us to kind of see who's attending, what you're using, what your concerns are, and so forth. This seminar is being recorded, so we'll distribute this to you in a few days along with the survey. I'm going to talk about the survey at the end, but it is really important to us as well. I mentioned our moderators, and here they are, Sarah Lynn Madrid, Harry Moore, and Nicole Grams. And so they will be answering your chat questions as they come across. And just a little bit about our agenda. This is an abbreviated version of the ones that we did in person, but we're going to hit really the important high points here.
Yeah, that's a great point, Keith. One of the things that you may want to do is get a snack, because at our live events we had great snacks, and I'm sure all of you have been stocked up on snacks. So make sure you have a snack when we get ready for break.
That's an excellent point. Yes, we did have great snacks. So we're going to discuss what's new in ArcGIS. We'll talk about what's new in Pro, online, and story maps, and then we'll also talk about our ArcGIS solution templates. About midway through this, we'll stop with Q&A. Harry Moore and Nicole will jump in and answer a lot of the some of the key questions that we've received. So we'll have a break then. That's your snack time. That's a great point, Will. That's your opportunity to get a snack and listen to some questions. Then we'll start back up with some 4 really impactful demos. We'll talk about ArcGIS in action in law enforcement, public works, engineering, and land records. And then we'll have a closing and call to action. And I really want you to make sure you stay around for the call to action. There's a really important part here, because we're going to focus the first part of this primarily on the technology. I want to make sure that we take some time and talk about the vision part of GIS as well, okay? So make sure to stay around for that. All right, so I mentioned poll questions. We're going to go ahead and start with one right now. And so let's see, let me go to the right question, that would help. So we'd like to know, I'm looking right now, we have 350 and counting participants. So we'd like to know what industry you work in. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll, and you should be able to see that now. So go ahead and answer that. We'll take a few minutes. Will, I realized I made a mistake. You know what I should have done is downloaded the Jeopardy theme song.
Yes.
Played that in the background.
Yeah. I'm humming it in my head.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me know when you're done.
Yeah.
Wrap it up.
Something like that. Yeah.
All right. And we'll Wait just a little bit. Man, y'all are quick on this. Good. All right, when we get to 300, I'm going to go ahead and end the polling so we can move on. All right, so let's go ahead and end that, and we'll share the results here. And as I suspected, we've got about 64% of our attendees are in state and local government. We've got another 5% on the federal side, and a nice representation here in consulting, education, energy, and healthcare as well. So glad y'all could join us, and so we're looking forward to covering a lot of ground in a short amount of time. Let's see if we can put that forward. So we talked about the theme being amplify your GIS. Of course, what do we mean by that? Well, think about a single raindrop on the surface of a lake. When the drop hits, you see these concentric circles kind of ripple outwards, and it gets larger and larger. We want to talk about today how you can create that same effect with GIS being the raindrop within your organization. So the purpose of this, the one thing we're really missing here is the connecting part, because one of the great parts about this, and one of the things Will and I really enjoy about this, is checking out the networking that goes on when we do these seminars. So obviously it's a little bit difficult to do today, but the purpose of this is really, Esri is a user-driven company. We are defined and we change course a great deal based on the problems that we help you solve. So simply put, we're here today to make sure that we can inspire and inform you so that you can do your best work with our technology. We know that right now the problems you're solving may look a little bit different than they did a couple of months ago, right? And we've been talking about this internally a great deal, right? How do I work effectively from home? How do I make sure my family's safe? How do I support my health department, my emergency management agency? We're working with folks that have to work with a unified command structure in a way that they haven't really done before. So how do we support that, right? And so we've seen a lot of changes in priorities over the last several weeks. So we wanted to provide both some sense of normalcy, right, by streamlining our regular agenda that we've done, but we also wanted to highlight our new offerings that can help you respond to COVID-19. This is a really important slide here, and because one thing that really isn't changing is our product strategy, and I would almost say you could just change this to a GIS strategy as a whole. So before we get into specific, workflows, I think it's important to review or make sure you understand where we're coming from in this regard. The focus of our product strategy in the past has always been, right, ArcGIS and the products around that for our GIS professionals. That's not changing. That's a key component, absolutely most crucial component to what we do in GIS as a whole, right? But one of the things that's expanded is we've started to see how mapping is now available to non-GIS professionals, either as consumers, meaning they're just viewing the map, or people that are actually creating maps from authoritative data that's created by GIS professionals. So we see this in ArcGIS Online, and this is where we've seen a great expanse in terms of how GIS and GIS functionality is used across an organization. But also one of the places that we've seen expanse is in location analytics, right? Where we can do things like GeoEnable business systems like permitting systems or asset management systems, especially legacy systems that we can't replace right away, but also be able to use business intelligence tools like Insights for ArcGIS. So we're using location analytics, but maybe not in the traditional desktop way. And then we were also seeing a huge expanse in the use of GIS technology with developers. So again, a group of people that in and of themselves are probably never going to sit down and learn ArcGIS, desktop as a program, but they need a map. They need some sort of analytics or geoprocessing tool as part of their app. They might need to do a simple bike route or do a buffer or some sort of image analysis. They need some component of that of ArcGIS to carve out to make their app work, right? So we're really excited to see that part of the overall geospatial cloud grow. And then the other thing, we're going to dive into this in a little bit more detail in a minute, but these geo-enabled systems. And I think you're going to see that this is a really impactful way to, again, grow and amplify how you leverage GIS. But these are very focused workflows, very focused apps that can be part of ArcGIS, or they can be separate. So when you hear the term Esri Geospatial Cloud, it's really referring to all of this combined. And some of it can be, a lot of it can be used as software, client-side software in the traditional sense. But also we're seeing a growing amount of it being available through software as a service, or SaaS. So this is a key component to understanding how Esri is growing and meeting the needs of this growing group of people. And this is really, as much as anything, is a testament to your work. The work that y'all have done in GIS has grown the audience for what GIS produces. And so this is really to a large extent, this is a result of the work that many of you have already been doing. So it's always inspiring me to see this slide, because it's really indicative of how GIS has grown, especially in the last 10 to 12 years. So it all starts with ArcGIS, right? And it is a comprehensive platform. We talk about it a lot being open and extendable. And open, of course, means that we can take in and export out to a number of different types of data sets, but it also means that we have a ton of content that's available, a ton of open source content that's available on GitHub for developers to be able to access whenever they need to. It's also a distributed environment. You may have heard that term a lot, and this is really what it means, is that this distributed model is sort of the evolution of the old enterprise model, where there was sort of this central warehouse and a sort of a clearinghouse, if you will, of data within an organization. And the GIS manager was essentially the gatekeeper for all that data. Well, this distributed model means that now, especially with web-based GIS, we can now have subject matter experts, say in a public works department or a planning department or other locations, be able to manage certain components of their own data and be able to manage it, say, in their own portal that they can then collaborate with others, so that we move away from the GIS manager sort of being the gatekeeper and being more of a service provider for the organization. And so in that sense, it's also extendable, right? Because I can use ArcGIS for a single project. Like when I started out in GIS, it was for a 7-person office, right? And I was the lone person, but it can also work for an entire organization. And so it's very scalable in that regard. I mentioned this a couple of slides ago, and I wanted to dive into this in more detail. One of the things that's really developed in the last couple of years are the GeoEnabled Systems. So these are independent solutions, and they're designed to support very focused workflows. And you can see some of these on your screen. Like if I need to do facilities management and indoor mapping, I have ArcGIS Indoors. I have, if I want to really leverage community engagement, I can use ArcGIS Hub and take a more evolved approach to open data. If I'm a planner, I can use ArcGIS Urban to be able to develop multiple design scenarios and do this in the web without any GIS software on my machine, right? And then be able to share those developments with others. If I'm in an economic development organization, or again, if I'm a planner, or if I'm a city or county administrator, I can look at demographic and socioeconomic information in Business Analyst and derive business intelligence about, what are the needs going on in our community. And then also, if I wanted to do mission awareness, for our folks on the federal side or EMAs, I can do this in ArcGIS Mission. So the great thing about these, again, they're very focused, but I can work in these independently of the enterprise, or they can be a part of it as well. So it's a very strong component to this Esri Geospatial Cloud, is now we can bring in so many more people to the fold, leveraging GIS, leveraging location in a way that they already kind of needed to anyway, right? But giving them a powerful way and platform to be able to do it without being GIS experts. And I think that's really kind of the key. So given some context to the platform, and let's go ahead and dig into what's new in ArcGIS. And I think the best place to start here is ArcGIS Pro, and this is our go-to desktop product for 2D and 3D visualization. I want to emphasize the 3D. We're going to hit on that point a lot today, and there have been a lot of really impactful updates, including the interactive suitability modeling and Will's personal favorite, the parcel management tools, and we're going to show you that later. So also some new things, and again, we're going to see some of these in just a little bit, but replication workflows and access to Python notebooks directly within ArcGIS Pro. And then we have some new items down the pipe, like animated symbols and additional GPS support down the road. Now look, ArcGIS Pro is evolving very quickly, and sometimes, I mean, it's, you know, for Will and I work for the company, and sometimes it's hard to keep up. So one of the things I would recommend for you is that if you haven't already, GeoNet is free. You can access it today. On there, we have our ArcGIS Pro roadmap. And so you can see an example of that there in the lower right-hand corner. You can see our near-term functionality list. So that's typically items that are going to be in the next release. Maybe 2 releases down, you'll see in the midterm releases, and then further down in the long-term releases. So you'll be able to see that as well. So find that on GeoNet. You can just search ArcGIS Pro roadmap, very easy to find, and keep that bookmarked just to kind of keep up with, to be able to keep up with a lot of the changes that are going on. Just like with ArcMap, with ArcGIS Pro, we have extensions, right, to be able to provide additional functionality. So the traditional ones that you're probably all aware of, spatial analyst, 3D analyst network, image, and so forth. One new one I want to call your attention to, though, if you haven't seen it before, it's there in the lower right-hand corner. It's called Locate XT. And with this extension, I can take unstructured data, so data that may not be in a spreadsheet, but maybe just in a text description. And I can take those geo coordinates, I can take place names, other important information from that unstructured data, and I can add it directly to my map. And then, of course, from there, I can start doing analysis and so forth. So think about that from the standpoint, if you have unstructured data that's got geospatial information in it, that's where Locate XT really shines. So all of these improvements should really help make your workflows go faster. And we are continually making 3D a more integral part of your workflow and analysis. And that's not really just because we think it looks cool, it does, but it's because it's really how people think and work anyway. And so we make it a more natural part of how you work. And so that's just part of what we do within ArcGIS Pro. So we want to make sure that we know that you want to be able to ensure data quality. We know you want to be able to improve sharing. We talked about amplifying our GIS. That doesn't work if we don't share our content effectively and securely. And then we need to be able to provide enhanced analysis. So we're going to highlight these new capabilities in a minute. But before we show you what these highlights look like in Pro, we have our second poll question of the day. So now, let me get to that. There we go. So this is a real simple one. Are you using ArcGIS Pro? So I'll go ahead and make that available. So even if you're not using it full time, you can click yes. But for most of our people, and I'll say this, and Will, feel free to chime in on this, I think what we're seeing from many of our clients is that it's sort of a progressive move from ArcMap to Pro. Most folks don't flip the switch in one day.
Yeah, exactly, Keith. And Pro is really the best tool for today's work environment, right? It supports all types of different licensing and disconnected workflows, but also with server space editing, I can basically be anywhere and have full access to my data to continue those business operations.
Exactly. All right. So we'll go ahead and end the polling here. And yeah, as I suspected, more than half of our users, it would help if I click share results. Let's do that. So more than half of our users at this point are using ArcGIS Pro. So that is, that's great to see. All right. So let's go ahead and move on. So So thanks for your responses. I appreciate that. We'll have one more that we're going to follow up with in a minute. So I talked about some of the updates and gave you some highlights of what we're going to see, but instead of me talking about it, I'd rather just switch it over to Will and let him show you what's new with ArcGIS Pro. So Will, take it away.
Thanks, Keith. And all right, so this is something, hopefully most of you are familiar with this screen. It's one that some of yours might look like mine, slightly messy here on the left with all my recent projects, but it's also where I can start and create a new blank template or other projects. But one thing a lot of you may not know is that I can share templates across my organization, right? So I can select another template here, and because I'm signed into my portal, in this case, my portal being ArcGIS Online, I can come into this GIS editors group and open this planning project template. And when I do that, it's going to create and download that template, and it's going to create that new project for me. And some things about this template that are really nice is that I have all of the things I need to do my work, right? So I can go to the catalog pane and see that I have databases that are here. I have layouts that are here. I have styles that my organization uses. I can even have my own locators for my organization. And because of that, it makes my life a lot easier and makes the life of your users easier. So we're going to switch gears a little bit and switch to a different project to focus on data editing and data quality. So I'm going to switch to this one here. And this might be something that a lot of you have maintained or maintained in the past, right? A water network. And water networks are really important to managing both the water quality, but also more and more to support emergency management functions. So I want to go in and look at some of this data a little bit more carefully. So here you see I have this data, my hydrant data, and I have it here in my table of contents. I'm going to go into it and show a new function that we have that had been around in ArcMap for a while, but we've refined it and made it better in Pro, and that one is find and replace. And find and replace can be used in a number of different ways, right? So if I want to look for a specific hydrant, I can find that asset. And you can see it not only found the one I was looking for, but it found any one that matched it. And I can change my search parameters to start with the whole field, the start of the field, matching case, to find exactly what I need. But another thing that's really nice with find and replace is that I can quickly come in and say my organization wanted to change how we label our hydrants across the board and change that asset ID from FH dash to HYD dash. And when I hit that, it's going to kick off a job to replace all those hydrant IDs. And you'll see something really quickly that happens is that that workflow will then update all of my hydrants. Okay, so now that we've done the find and replace, let's look at some editing functions that can improve our workflows. So I'm going to zoom in here, and I know that we have hydrants here and hydrants here, but it looks like we might be missing one here. So I'm going to create a new hydrant. And you can see I have all different types of hydrants here and different service lines that I could create. But I also have this feature template that allow me to create a hydrant with a service with my lateral there. And when I do that, you'll see a couple things. The first thing you'll see is that my hydrant ID has automatically been populated for me. So if I switch to my attributes field, another thing that you might see and you'll be really familiar with are domains here. So I have a domain around my manufacturer. So if I picked Corey, for example, I could come down here and see that the hydrant diameters that show up for Corey are only 2.5 or 4 inches. And that's been done because we've set up something called contingent values. And contingent values is basically the linking of two domains together to restrict the values on editing workflows, right? So if I were to switch my manufacturer to American Darling, you can see I have a lot of more choices. And if I pick that choice there of American Darling with a 5-inch nozzle, and then go back to Corey, you'll see Corey doesn't even show up on the list, right? And because of that, it makes my ability to keep that data updated a lot easier to do. So another thing that we are using to update automatically is that asset ID, like I mentioned, and then the service territory. And those service territories and asset ID fields were all populated by using attribute rules. Attribute rules use Arcade to get the software to do more work for us. Arcade is a powerful scripting language that is used across the ArcGIS platform, and you may have already used it in Pro or ArcGIS Online. I can tell these rules when to run when I add a feature, edit a feature, or delete a feature. We can create different types of attribute rules, and these were calculation tools. They calculated a field's value, but you can have tools that run on constraints or validation rules, run against a group of features. In addition to attribute rules, can be asked to do many other things, including updating the data in the layers. So as Arcade continues to get more powerful, so do those attribute rules. Okay, so now that I'm done with this water distribution editing, I'm going to switch to another map I have open, and that's this area map here. And this is an area that all of you might be familiar with in Washington, D.C. And I'm going to turn these crime incident data points on because I want to show you a new capability in Pro 2.5, and that is feature binning. And so you can get the binning by going to Analysis, in geoprocessing, and enable feature binning. The feature binning tool is a really simple tool to run, and you input your features, in this case the crime incidents, you set your bin type, whether it's a flat hexagon, a pointing hexagon, square, or geohash. I could also put some information in here to do summary statistics, right? So if this was, for example, damage assessment data, I might want to do a summation by bin to show how much has been done. But we've done all that for you, and it doesn't really take that long to run. So I'm going to turn binning on, and so you can see what that looks like. So what's great about binning is that I can zoom in and I can visualize thousands, millions of points really quickly with bins, but eventually I'll get back to the raw data. The other thing that I really like with bins is that I can go in and set definition queries on my data and see that those bins respond to that data in real time. So as I move in and out, I can see that data change and be updated. So I'm going to go back to all of my data, and we're going to zoom in a little bit. So one of the things that's really challenging sometimes in working with data is making a pretty map. And so some of the ways that we've worked on that is that we have different capabilities for symbology. And I could come in and say, hey, I want to symbolize this by unique values. And go into my symbology pane and add all the values. And so we'll change this to a fence. And I could add all those values up, right? And then I could go through all of those and have them match. But one of the things that is really helpful is this match layer symbology to a style. So I could have an existing style, in this case, one here in my project. And let me move that out of the way. And let's try that again. And now I can run that. And when I do that, it's going to match all of my data to a style set, and it's going to update automatically. So as I get new data, or if I need to share this around, I can make consistent, high quality products from this data. The other new feature that I really want to show is this new ability to create different charting within ArcGIS, or within ArcGIS Pro. And my new favorite chart type is this calendar heat chart. And so when you choose a calendar heat chart, you come in and you change your properties and you pick my data, right? So I can pick my incident date, And I can choose year by month or week of day of the month. And year by month is great, but I really want to show day of the month. And so when I do that, you can see I can show the hour of the day and when crimes are reported. But I think one of the most powerful pieces of ArcGIS Pro is how it's all interconnected. And so I could come down here and say theft from auto. And when I do that, you can see that most of these incidents were reported in the morning, and you can see how easy it is to see that data. The other thing that's really nice is that this is a connected environment. So when I select a cell within the calendar heat chart, it will select the features for me in the map, which I think is really cool. Okay, so I've created my calendar heat chart, and so I want to show you some things that I think are really cool within geoprocessing. So in Pro, we have the ability to look at the history of all of our geoprocessing. And all of you have probably looked at this history before, but maybe not explored this menu fully. So if I click on all of these features and I right click, I can add them to a model. I can also share them as a geoprocessing package or a web tool. I can copy them to the Python command window, or save as a Python script. But if I add them to that model, I can then take that model and see that in complete geoprocessing workflow, and have a nice model that I can share with my colleagues. And I could still export it here to a Python file, or to a graphic, and have that work within my organization. And if Python's your thing, one of the things that I'm super excited about is the integration of Jupyter notebooks within ArcGIS Pro. No longer did I have to spin up a Jupyter notebook session in a browser. I can do all of those workflows within the ArcGIS Pro project. Okay, so now that I've done some analysis, let's look at some of the functions we can do back on the DC map. So one of the functions that we needed to do in that analysis is get all of the data and visualize that data in the map. So one of the ways I can do that is with my appearance here, and one of the new appearance functions we have is chart symbology. So I could pick some different functions here, and let's do motor vehicle theft, and I can change that bar chart to a pie chart, and then I can display that chart really easily. But my favorite thing here is the ability to display that chart in 3D. And then the other thing is the size type. So fixed size is great, but sometimes I need to see the sum of all the values. And you can see that makes it really easy to visualize this. And this visualization technique is one that I think you can use in a lot of different workflows today. Okay, so now that I have that process, let's go out and see some of the other things we can do. So visualizing data in 3D might be something that can help you visualize different things. And I could step through this data and visualize that data in 3D, or I could also take that data and share it as an animation. And some of the new enhancements to the animation framework have really helped me be able to do this. So by showing that, I can really take that data and make an impactful visualization that I can share across my organization. Okay, so let's look at some of the new improvements that have been done to layouts and other things. So I can import a layout, and ArcGIS Pro comes with stock 12 function layouts, but I can also pick this layout here, this user seminar layout C size. And when I do that, I can come in and set the map frame to my DC map. And you can see it automatically takes all of my data, puts it in the map, and allows me to make a better looking map more quickly.
Hey, Will, can I jump in real quick? I just want,
Yeah.
we didn't talk about this during the other seminars, but one thing that I think I've just taken for granted that I really like in Pro, you look at the top of your screen there where you've got user seminar layout, model 10, DC map. The thing I love about Pro is that over ArcMap is that it now lets me think more in a project mode, right? I can have all these different components. I can have multiple layouts, multiple models and so forth, and they're all just part of my project. And
Yeah,
then I
and
can
that's,
add and move things around. I really like, that's to me is one of the more appealing parts.
yeah, it really is, Keith. And there's so many different things you can do in Pro now that can expedite your workflows. And I've shown some of them, but there's so many even more. So let's get back to it. And one of the things that a lot of you may be doing, maybe not necessarily on your home printer, but is this is having to share data out. And we can share data as a as a map package, or I could share it out, and that's going to package up all the data in my project. But one of the things that I think is often forgotten about is printing. And so you can see I have some functions here. I can print in black and white. I can tile oversized, right? So on my little printer at home, I might have to print out all these different tiles. And printing is now done in a pane, which means it happens in the background. The other thing that I think is really important is exporting of maps. And so exporting has really been enhanced, right? So we've always been able to export in PDF, and we've made some improvements to those file sizes of those PDFs that get exported, but we've also improved the ability to restrict and put security on those PDFs. And so if you need to share a document on PDF that has content in it that needs to be secured, we can do that here within Pro. The other thing we have is the ability to export to this format here, the Adobe Illustrator Exchange format. And what that does is it gives me the ability to take that map and share it with users in the free extension for Adobe to Illustrator, Maps for Adobe Creative Cloud extension. And this means as a graphics designer, your graphics designers can immediately use these maps without any additional Esri licensing. Okay, so this is my last and favorite part of this demo. And this demo has more things stuffed into it than like a 5-pound bag of sugar, right? It is just full of stuff. And y'all might not necessarily have known this, but I am not a very good producer of great cartographic content. And so one of the things that I really like is this new ability to modify content. And I'm going to move this zoom window out of the way, and I'm going to add some vertices here. And when I do that, I can take this text box from a simple square polygon and align it to follow the boundaries of this physical feature. And so you can see through my rudimentary mouse skills, I'm able to produce a somewhat decent looking workflow. Maybe apply, yes, there we go. So this is where you would clap and cheer if we were in a live audience. And this is ArcGIS Pro 2.5. And if you haven't moved to 2.5, there are more reasons to move to it beyond what I've just shown. But really, it is the best piece of software for doing desktop today. And so, thank you, Jorge, for raising your hand. I appreciate that.
Good.
And so, now that I've completed this demo, I will switch it back to Keith, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good. So, yeah, I was hoping that there would be a function on Zoom for doing the wave, but apparently,
yeah,
that's not.
Yeah, there's no wave. So sorry,
All
Keith.
right.
We'll have to We'll have to request that next time.
That's in the next version. All right. So before we kind of go over this, I wanted to do a follow-up poll for us, for those of you that that are using Pro. So this is so I'm going to go ahead and launch a question on here about you know, what are the reasons that you do or do not use ArcGIS Pro. And unfortunately, this is not as smart as the Survey 123 app. So you'll need to, if you answered yes on question 1, you'll need to, on question number 2, you'll need to mark that bottom choice as well. So go ahead and fill that out, and we'll let this. But while this is going on, I just wanted to kind of recap some of the things that we saw here, because as Will mentioned, this was a lot. The find and replace tool, just from a data management standpoint, is incredibly powerful. The feature binning is a great way to be able to visualize data, especially a ton of data at large and small scales. And the Jupyter notebooks. I know that, you know, typically when there are lots of frantic note taking, I've noticed when we do these seminars that when we get to the Jupyter notebooks part, so I think people are really happy about that being a part of what we do in Pro. And we noticed that we were able to do pie charts and animation within 3D. And doing this over Zoom really doesn't do it justice. It is so much smoother. The animation is so much smoother now from what you create in Pro. It's less likely to make people sick when they're viewing it.
As someone who's made people sick with animations,
that's
I
true.
appreciate this.
And again, multiple layouts and being able to reshape text. That's one of those, when I saw it, at first I was amazed and then I was mad, because I remembered having to create multiple text box for something, you know, for odd shaped layouts like that, just to be able to try to fit the text in there. So thanks for that, Will. There's, again, want to reemphasize the ArcGIS Pro roadmap that's available within GeoNet. Find that, bookmark it, and check back often. All right, so let's go ahead and move to, let's see if we can get this, there we go. Let's go ahead and move to ArcGIS Online. So just like ArcGIS Pro is our go-to desktop product, Online is really our go-to SaaS offering. And so when we talk about the Esri product strategy, and we showed that top block up there with mapping, this is really where ArcGIS Online comes into play. So it is becoming much more commonly used within organizations. There are now over 7 million users that are leveraging ArcGIS Online, and we've seen billions of maps that have been created from this. There are over 150,000 open data sets that are available to everyone now through you and through other sources. And so with ArcGIS Online, we've made a lot of improvements, including a next generation map viewer that we're going to show you in just a bit. And then you can see some of the new things that are coming, especially organization to organization and collaboration. I think this is going to be, you know, this is a huge component to this distributed model that we've been talking about, right? So that not everything has to sit within one central repository. We can let the subject matter experts do what they need to, and then be able to share content securely with people that need to see it. And we can do that through ArcGIS Online or Enterprise. And then one of my favorite components of this that's available through ArcGIS Online is story maps. I think it's, my background's in planning, so I've seen how this has really grown in the planning community. We talk about
don't hold that against Keith.
Don't hold it against me. I'm recovering. I'm okay. But we've seen how you know, planners always have a story to tell, and so we've seen how they gravitate to this. Seen public works folks gravitate to this as a way to be able to show community or capital improvement projects and so forth. So this has been growing exponentially, and that's really an understatement. There are over 1 million stories now that have been published, over 3,000 a day, and we're seeing millions of views of this every week. There's a new next generation storytelling tool that Will's going to show you, and I think if you've been using story maps, you're going to be like, oh, wow, that's really good. And if you haven't, I think it'll be a great catalyst for you to be able to make that move. We've talked about how ArcGIS Online has grown and grown and grown over the years. And, you know, there are a number of different analysis tools and geoprocessing tools. And new apps that are available and web app builder and all these wonderful things that have grown from ArcGIS Online. You know, the one thing that hasn't changed, the map viewer, the one thing you see when you log on, right? So that's changed. And again, we mentioned that we're a user-driven company, and so we've gotten a lot of requests for enhancements to the map viewer, and we've listened, and we're going to show you what that looks like in just a little bit. So this has come from your input and from others across the globe, and so we have the map viewer beta edition. So Will, instead of me trying to talk about it, although I did have a cool animation to show, people need to see what this looks like, and they need to see the new story maps builder. So why don't you take it from here?
Yeah, thanks, Keith. So let me share my screen. Okay, so this screen hopefully looks familiar to most of you. This is my content, and we often get questions on how do I even get started with the map viewer beta, right? So one way is take an existing map you might have, and you can click on the ellipses here, and you can open in a map viewer, right? Open in that new map viewer. But my favorite way to do it is to come up to the app launcher button here and scroll down and find that map viewer beta. And so, yes, this is in beta, but it's a really great tool for working with new data. And if I have new mapping projects, I think it's a really powerful way to explore that content of those maps. So here you can see I have kind of a different look and feel than I do with the traditional ArcGIS Online map viewer. And that map viewer, you know, it's been around for gosh, 11 years now. So it's been around for, yeah, just a little while. And so while it's changed a little bit from a stylistic point of view, it's been the same ever since. And so this map viewer beta is now built on our 4.x JavaScript API. And so there's some really great enhancements that we will show as part of this demo. And so as we look at this, you can see I'm going to add some layers. So I'm going to come in and add a layer, and for my organization, and I have this popular demographics data from the United States, and I'm going to add it to my map. And once I do that, I'm going to see that I have some things that are really helpful in my map authoring process. So the first off is on the left-hand side, I have all the tools for kind of map authoring and saving, printing, opening an existing map, which is my favorite new capability. So I no longer have to go into back into my content to open a map. I can open a map directly from the map viewer, which is really helpful and saves a lot of time. So I'm going to click these layers off, and I'm going to go in and pick a different base map. So we're going to make a chloropleth map today, and so one of the ways that I really like to do that is change my base map to this dark gray canvas. The dark gray canvas base map has limited labeling and also limited distractions, which is good for me because I'm going to be honest with you. I can see all of your chat little messages pop up, and I'm like a squirrel in my office going, hey, look, I wonder what that person said. I wonder what you guys said. So keep those chats coming in, but we're going to keep going through this process together. So one of the things that's really helpful is on the right is I have all these different layer properties. And so I've added my layer to the map. And so, and typically I would zoom to a state we're in, but we're just going to zoom to the southeast because hopefully primarily most of you are from the southeast, but I know we have people that have joined us from across the country and across the world. And so I'm going to go to the properties panel, and I'm going to look at some of the different pieces, right? So I can enable this legend for this layer, so I could have a legend for it. I can change the transparency, right? Which is really helpful if I need to do that. I can also set the visible scale range, right? So it makes it really easy for me to see that data. So I'm going to click on my styles option here, and you can see that when I do that, I can change the style here, or I could come in and add a field. and say, let's say population. So let's see, total population. We can add that in, and you can see my map automatically starts to take advantage of that, right? So by default, it tries to give me a counts and amounts function. And that's great, but I might want to look at something else. So we've looked at that styling and we've done the counts and amounts, but we have a new styling capability, and it's probably one of my favorites, and that one is dot density. So when I do that dot density, you can see here 1 dot equals 1,900 people, and you can start to see really quickly the density of population within the Southeast, right? And so I can zoom in and see those styles, but I could also change this styling attribute and look at this growth rate, right? So maybe I want to see areas that are growing faster than others. And when I do that, you can see it automatically switches to this counts and amounts color scheme, right? And it automatically switches to the counts and amounts color scheme. And one of the things about this scheme is that it has the ability to have all these different color ramps. And we've picked a color ramp that can help us show that data more easily. And let's see. And so when I do that, it picks the thing out for me. And so the other thing I can do is that I can filter this data out, right? So I can add a filter expression where I say growth rate is at least, and I'm going to delete this one because I don't need 2 expressions. And so one of the things you can see in my expression is that it will automatically filter out, and I have no idea why it's not rendering the way I want it to. But one of the things I can do is I can come in here and I could say, okay, show me all areas that are growing at a 2% rate. And growth is great, but you know, one of the things you can see is how quickly it renders, right? So we've eliminated like 3,000 counties from this data very quickly. And so you can see, going back to my styles pane, let's try this one more time. Growth. Yay, there we go. All right. So you can see how quickly that filtering gives me the ability to add and remove things, and I can see how those that data is filtered over time. So Keith really likes this layer, and we like to be able to show those areas that are growing at a 2% rate, right? So it's really easy to see kind of what that looks like. But 2% growth rate doesn't necessarily mean that much to everyone, right? So a 2% growth rate for some could be hundreds of people, but for like Houston or Dallas, to grow 2%, you may need 100,000 people. You know, it's really just a different way to visualize that data. So the other thing that we can do is go in and click on a new expression. So I can add an expression, and in the expression builder, I can come in and say, hey, I need to go in and and put in a different thing. So one of the things I might need is total population. So I'm going to search for 2018 population. Here we go. So I'm going to add an expression. And so one of the things that we might need is different capabilities of population. And one of the things in Pro is that, or in ArcGIS Online, is using Arcade, I can visualize that data in different ways. So I can take, for example, population, and say, okay, here's my total population for this, for the future year minus the future population for the current year. And I could say, edit this up here and say change in population, and hit OK. And so when I do that, you see I have a new field that's added, and that change in population really helps me to visualize how that data is being changed. And so one of the things you may not know is that with Arcade, I can create an attribute expression and create a new value on the fly, right? So if I want to come in and visualize that data, I can do that. So here we are, I could click on Charlotte, for example, and I could click on that data and see what's going on there. And one of the things about this pop-up that you may notice is it's pretty terrible. So we've made some enhancements for the abilities for to maintain pop-ups, and one of those is just the ability to put text in, right? So I could come in and put this text expression in, right? And I could hit OK. And when I do that, you can see that this pop-up automatically pops up with the content that I've put in there. And anyone who's ever managed pop-ups in the old map viewer knows that it was a lot of guessing and checking, right? So I could come in and first of all, delete this. I could now make my pop-up a lot nicer to look at, and I can take that pop-up, and I'm gonna stop clicking on the map keys and visualize it there. So very quickly, I've taken a simple piece of data and I could save it out as population growth.
So while Will's doing that, I think it's worth pointing out this is the second time we've seen Arcade, right? Saw it in Pro, we've seen it here and online. So Arcade is pervasive throughout the platform at this point, and it's a really powerful expression language to be able to leverage.
Yeah, and it really can take data that, you know, one of the things about that data set is it didn't have a population change between it, right? So I can automatically calculate that population change to visualize in the map. And it makes it really impactful when you're looking at, you know, this county down here that's grown just has grown 3%, but really we've only added, you know, 4,000 people, right? So it's a really impactful way to visualize that data. Okay, so now that I've built a nice looking map, I need to continue telling this story. And you've probably guessed kind of where we're going with this. I'm going to start telling that story within story maps, right? So I can go in, I can visualize that data, and I can open my stories. So I'm going to create a new story and start that story map process. So I might need a title, right? So here's my population change, and here's my story, and I'm going to add some images. Right, and so here's this nice background, and I'm going to add it, and then I'm going to scroll down and start telling this story. Right.
So while Will is doing that, just a quick update on this for folks. This is the new story map the new story map builder. So you may, if you use story maps a lot, you've probably come across this, but this was really a giant leap forward for us. It was built using our ArcGIS API for JavaScript. So it's very fast, it's intuitive, and it's very flexible too. And especially those of you that have been making story maps and have sort of been, what's the nice word, corralled into certain templates like Journal, or which is one of my personal favorites, or the map tour and so forth. You have a lot more flexibility in this environment. It was also designed with a mobile first mentality in mind, so it's very mobile responsive. It auto saves your work, which is very important for me. If you've been using the classic story map templates, again, I'm a big fan of Journal and so forth. Don't worry there. We've made new features available in the builder experience that we want to make sure you check out. Those will still work. Okay, I don't mean to make it sound like they're not going to, but this is really an impactful way to be able to take a map and then be able to turn it into a storytelling device.
Yeah, exactly, Keith. And you guys have kind of seen me building this, but let's look at what that story map might look like completed. So I can go to my stories, but here's stories that are shared with me. And this is a story map that my colleague put together. And this is our taking the turkey out of the oven moment, right? So this is kind of what that story map can look like. And so what's great about this story map is that it's using one piece of data, and that's that demographic data set from the Living Atlas. And the Living Atlas has so many really great pieces of data, and you can see we can visualize that data in different ways, right? So here's both negative and positive growth across the United States. We could show the fastest growing counties. We can embed content like dashboards within these story maps, and it makes it really easy to visualize that content to tell the story that I want to tell, and all can be done in an interactive experience that looks good on any device. All right, Keith.
All right.
And so that's story maps.
Thanks, Will. And so let's go ahead and go back just to kind of recap what we saw. And so again, we saw the new look and layout of the map viewer beta. So again, it's where we're heading with this. It's still beta. We want your feedback. So please please try this out and provide it for us. It's very important that we hear from you in that regard. And again, you saw the ArcGIS Story Maps Builder. We talked about this meeting being an opportunity to both inform and inspire you. And so this is my inspiration / guilt trip into story maps. My 11-year-old son and I went on a trip to DC with his school, well, gosh, a couple of months ago now. So he is putting his scrapbook together in a story map. So if my 11-year-old son can do this on his own, you can too. It's that easy. Okay. All right. Let's move on to our ArcGIS solution templates. All right. So there we go. So if you're not familiar with these solution templates are part of the ArcGIS platform. There we have over 450 configurable solution templates. We have some that deal with business continuity. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. We have specific verticals for local government, for state government, for utilities, for parks and gardens even, right? Emergency management and public safety. And the goal of these is to address specific workflows to provide very focused apps so that you can take the maps that you've created and put them in an app that makes sense for your end users. So a couple of key components about this. I mentioned they're free, so that's easy to budget for, right? So they're a part of the platform already. All of these are open source, so we give you the tech, we give you the code for these. If you want to go in and change it for your own purposes, feel free. Knock yourself out, that's great. I'm not a developer, I have no desire to be one. So the benefit for me is that they're configurable. I can go in there and change certain components like the color scheme, or put my logo in the map, or change the map that I want to use, and so forth. And the other benefit is they're fully supported. So if you have issues deploying them, you can call tech support. They'll walk you through it. I am living proof of that. I've done it a couple of times, and I've deployed a couple of apps from our solutions template, and it really is easy. It's very well documented. They can walk you through it, and then tech support to back you up. I think one of the most impressive things, if I can brag on our solutions team for a little bit, we've got about 70 people that are specifically devoted to these solution templates. And when the coronavirus really started ramping up, this team got together and in less than 3 days put together these series of apps for the coronavirus response solutions that you see here on the left. So being able to provide information about case reporting and community impact dashboards and facility status managers and so forth. It was really impressive to see. And then being able to push that into a hub template initiative so that the public has a way to be able to go in, see information, get information, provide feedback about certain, about certain components of that initiative, certain dashboards. If they have questions, they can ask them directly through that hub. And then again, the COVID-19 hub, you'll see the link for that. Tons of free resources that are available to you there through our solutions team. So one thing that I'd like to remind folks, and I know just from looking at the records, many of you on here have already used it, but if you are needing help, especially in implementing these coronavirus response solutions, our Esri disaster response program is standing by and fully staffed. Fully staffed is an understatement. They're actually, I'm actually amazed at the numbers and the types of people that they are bringing into the DRP. It's really been amazing to help out with this implementation. So please, if you need help, let us know. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, and I would add to that, Keith, we are all fully on board across Esri to support our users during this time. And if there are something that you need, please speak out as to what that is, and we'll be glad to help you through whatever those needs are.
We don't give you gold stars for spinning your wheels. Let us know. I mean, that's what we're here for. So, Will, with that, I'm going to throw it over to you and let you talk a little about the solutions and the deployment tool.
All right. So as Keith mentioned, the solution site is one that I think a lot of our customers have known about, but it's a great site to leverage, especially with this current environment that we are all living with. The collection of solutions is vast, right? We have solutions support a lot of different business workflows. And a lot of our organizations can find value very quickly by choosing a solution that would work for them. So whether it's land records in local government or maintaining address data, we have solutions that can be used across the board for everyone in your organization. I wanted to highlight especially those solutions that right now are around the coronavirus support. So for those that don't know, our solutions typically are built around a quarterly release cycle. And so to give you an idea of what has been going on, we've released the coronavirus response, first release of that response solution on March 16th. On April 7th, last week, we also released all of these different solutions to update and support those workflows. And all of these solutions can be accessed using the solution deployment tool within ArcGIS Pro. And if you need help with any of these solutions, we'd be glad to help you. The other thing that I want to highlight is the COVID-19 GIS Hub. And so the ability to visualize data across the board, we've gotten a lot of different resources that are out there, right? So Esri has put together all of those resources at coronavirus-resources.esri.com, and you can find all of those solutions as well, like the COVID-19 hospital impact model for ArcGIS Pro, or this really red button here that can help you request resources and assistance for standing up any of those sites. We've also linked in all of the other services like the COVID-19 dashboard that John Hopkins built, along with other resources as well. So the amount of resources that are out there to support this are vast. If you need help with any of those things, please feel free to let us know, and we'd be happy to connect you with someone that can help you jumpstart those workflows.
Thanks, Will. So we've got one more. So again, the solution templates are just an incredible resource, and neither Will nor I will follow behind you and say, well, they didn't build this. It's yours. Take it, take ownership of it, deploy it. It's a great way to be able to gain more value from the maps that you're already creating. All right. So with that, we want to take our final poll question of the first half here. And there we go. It's our poll question. So the next one, if we can pull it up here, we just showed you some of these solution templates. Have you deployed any of them, and in what industry? So, and if not, that's okay. You can just say none, and we'll give you about a few seconds to wrap this up. But again, I think the benefit on the solutions team, again, we can access those directly from solutions.arcgis.com. But again, there's a solutions deployment tool directly within ArcGIS Pro. So we can take the maps that we're creating there and deploy them to these solution templates directly from our desktop environment. All right. So I think that's one of the key things to remember going forward. All right. Go ahead and end that. And so most that have deployed have done this through our local, or focused on local government and state government and emergency management, which makes sense because that's where most of y'all are working at this time. All right, so let's move on to our next section, and we're going to talk about ArcGIS in action, how GIS is used to support actual workflows. And I'm happy that many of you are on the state and local government side, so that's really going to be the focus of what we're watching today. But even if it's not a vertical that you have interest in, I would highly encourage you to watch, because I think you're going to see ways to be able to reconfigure a lot of these workflows. I think you're going to see a lot of commonalities with other data sets and other workflows that you have. All right, so we're going to be highlighting GIS being used to amplify workflows in public works, in law enforcement, in engineering, and in land records. All right, so let's go ahead and start with law enforcement. So as many of you know, the individuals in public safety a lot of times may not have GIS training, so getting them set up for success in the beginning is going to save them a lot of time in their day-to-day work. And so there are two ways you can support the department. Oops, there we go, sorry. First and foremost is getting the data accurate by geo-enabling the records management system, or the RMS. And then you can start by using it for analysis. And then secondly, we can showcase that data using a crime analysis dashboard. So the first workflow that we're going to walk you through is how to geo-enable your crime data. And you can export your CAD and RMS system and even set up a scheduled import of your data into GIS in whatever interval you'd like. And so with this data, you're now able to map, analyze, and build your applications. And then we're able to, and we're going to go ahead and switch over to Will now and let him walk you through this process. So Will, take it away. And you may be on mute.
It does help if you unmute. That's a pro tip from us to you this morning. Okay, so crime analysts, they've worked with a lot of different data, and having worked with many different legacy business systems in the past, I was super excited if I could get some pieces of data that looked just like this, right? So this is an Excel spreadsheet of new crime data for Rochester, New York. And you know, it has all those different pieces of good information in it, and we're lucky enough that it has other pieces like latitude and longitude in there. And so taking this data and mapping it and standardizing that process is really important to creating quality data and analysis, and having trust in that data that we produce as an organization. So I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that ArcGIS Pro can do that. But first, before I do that, I know there were some questions from the workflow of, hey, what is the solution deployment tool? Oh, and I don't have it here. But if you did have it here, it would show up in the share functionality as the solution deployment tool. And to get the crime analysis toolbar, you can use the solution deployment tool to do that. So showing the solution deployment tool is, or showing the crime analysis toolbar, really this should be called incident analysis, right? It could be used to manage any type of point data that I need to manage. And there's different pieces of the toolbar that are set up through this continuous workflow, right? So I can enhance attributes or convert time. These tools here that can convert time fields, or features to 3D by time, or extracting parts, or appending attributes from polygons, are all workflows that we are asked to do in different work that we do every day. But all of these tools, from the selection tools to the tactical and strategic analysis tools, to allow us to do things like repeat and near repeat analysis, or to show percent change or density analysis. Those are all different tools to help us work through what we need to do. We also have tools to support investigative analysis, whether it's incident sequencing or incident pathing or cell phone analysis, or generating sector lines or space-time comparisons. And finally, tools for sharing that information out, like creating charts, maps, layouts, and web layers so we can share this data with our colleagues. But the big star and the overlooked star is this setup import for this crime analysis workflow. And so we can do that in a couple different ways. We can do that from an XY table or from an address table, right? So if we don't have XY data in that field, we can use the address table, and we can use our own geocoder to help with that. Or if we don't have a geocoder, we can use Esri's geocoder to enhance that data. But from XY table, I get this geoprocessing tool called Configure Record Import. And basically what it does is it gives me a ability to take some source data, like that Excel data, target feature, like my current crime data, and it allows me to set a record identifier field, date fields, and it allows me to avoid getting duplicates by having those record identifiers. And then I can do X, Y, and coordinate data, schema mapping if I need to, timestamp format, and I can run that process. And when I do that, I'm then able to use the second function, import records. And import records just allows me to go and grab this configuration file that I've created. And when I do that, I will be able to update the data programmatically. And so to show you what that looks like, I'm going to jump into my attribute table to make sure that you see this is real. So I have about 24,651 pieces of data here. And I'm going to go in my map, and I'm going to go into a bookmark down to this really interesting area called the Maplewood Historic District in Rochester. And I'm going to further go into this one street called Albemarle Street, because when I run this tool, I want you to be able to see some of the data sets that get updated. And so you can see I have the data that's here on the street, and I'm going to run this geoprocessing tool. And it shouldn't take too long to run, but you know, working from remotely now, it may take a little bit longer than normal, but we shall see. So I can view the details of its running. It's logged me into the portal. It has will do all those things as we go. And so what this tool is doing is it's checking against all the features that are already there. It's updating older records, filtering out duplicates, and then creating features. And you can see it's appending that data of 691 updated incidents from that Excel spreadsheet. So it's really nice to be able to share that data and have that data updated. So you can see now that I'm in Albemarle Street, and as I zoom in and zoom out, my data has been updated. So this area over here, you can see there's some interesting pieces of information in this data. And so I can have that data and I can click on it, and you can see that data is being updated. So here there was a burglary in 2019. So maybe there's a pattern that's starting to emerge that I want to start taking advantage of some of these tools in the crime analysis toolbar to take advantage of that piece of information. And that tool that I think that brings the most value, especially in this time, is this one here. It's the 80/20 analysis tool. And so what it can do is give you an idea of where your crimes are and show you these are the locations that I can reduce. These are 80% of the 80% of the crimes are happening in 20% of the locations. And especially this area down here, I can start to do some analysis there. So as I am looking at my data, one of the things that I wanted to share with you is that data set, that same data that I'm looking at is here in ArcGIS Online. So I just appended this data in, and it's been updated in this web map. So it makes it really easy to poke at the map and get that same information to share out to the public, right? So I can share that public data, that crime data as needed to the public or within my portal to share that data across my organization. So the last thing that I want to mention is and introduce is dashboards. So dashboards are a really great way, and I know all of you have seen or looked at dashboards, but they're a really great way for command staff and leadership and even the public to get information about what's going on within your organization. So I could say switch to CPD and then switch to a police district here and say I just want to look at larcenies. Let me move the zoom window out of the way. And I can see trends like, hey, how are these things happening over the last 14 days? Or how does this year compare to last year? And so by having all of these different pieces of information, I'm able to produce higher quality products that can be shared within my organization. And I can simplify the workflows for my crime analysis to let them spend more time doing analysis and less time trying to import and manage data. So Keith,
I love that dashboard. I think that is so impactful, and I think a lot of our users can see that as well, especially when you think about how you know, decision makers need to see that data and they need to be able to drill, you know, get above all of the details and be able to answer a question. You know, when the city manager comes in or the media is asking questions about what's going on in this neighborhood and so forth, they've got to be able to answer questions. And to me, I think that's one of the great things about that dashboard is it gives that authoritative information. It's filtered through and it makes sense, and I get it right away and it's updated. I don't have to go hunt down the mapping guy, right, to get that answer. It's just there for me. All right. So beyond what we've shown you today, I wanted to highlight this up here. There's so much more that you can do with ArcGIS to support your law enforcement team. So a lot of these workflows that you see up here, we have out-of-the-box solutions that you can stand up quickly. Again, solutions.arcgis.com is where you would access those, or through the solution deployment tool. And this is how you can really provide your law enforcement with this one platform that supports multiple missions. And then just to sort of sum up what we talked about on here, let's see if I can click on that. Here we go. Some of the things that we saw, again, we were working in ArcGIS Pro 2.5, just to emphasize the point that Will made earlier. The crime analysis toolbar is part of the core functionality. So there's no additional cost for that to be able to access that. We imported records using the geoprocessing tool, and we can use the geoprocessing scheduler, so we don't have to use the Windows task scheduler, which I know will make many of you happy, to be able to do that. So we can keep regular updates coming in from our RMS system. And then again, once we've done our analysis, we can post some of that up on our operations dashboard for internal and maybe even external viewing if you wanted to. So that covers, again, what we wanted to hit on as far as law enforcement. Let's go ahead and switch gears over to public works. And so when we're talking about public works here, and I know from different departments or different cities and counties, different terminologies, we're really talking about streets at this point. That's what we're going to focus on. And some of you have it, you know, called the roads department or highway department and so forth. We're going to call it public works. All right. And so within this, our staff needs to be able to plan for long-term maintenance so we can be proactive to avoid costly repairs or replacement. And so there are a lot of individuals working in this. And so we're going to highlight some of these folks, and I think you'll recognize these roles pretty easily, right? We've got our field crews, right? Public Works doesn't function without its field crews. So they spend a lot of time performing inspections, overseeing repair work, filling out lots of fun pavement condition forms and turning them over to their supervisor. And it's pretty common in a lot of organizations for that to be paper-based. So who gets to deal with that? Well, it's our supervisor here. And so he's, for all intents and purposes, this is our chief operations officer. And he reports to the public works director, but he also has direct engagement with the city manager, mayor, and all too often with city council members. And so the work's been piling up because the city's growing. There are increasing demands on the street infrastructure. And so the supervisor is spending more and more time taking reports from the field and entering them into a spreadsheet that an intern made for them about 7 years ago. And a lot of the times, they just because they're inundated with work, they live by the "if it ain't broke, don't fix it" mantra, right? Well, here comes our GIS manager to save the day. And after kind of meeting with the public works folks and understanding their workflows, which is key to this, we're going to go over that more later. He understands that there's an easy way to optimize those workflows for the field crews and the office staff, because everything they're doing is impacted by location. So for public works to even listen to him, he knows he's got to provide a solution that doesn't increase their workload, frees time for the deputy director and field crew manager, and helps administrators make better, more justifiable, that's key, more justifiable decisions about where to put resources. So I'm going to switch over to Will. We can talk about how we collect how do we collect information from the field? There are a number of different ways to do that. So Will?
Thanks, Keith. So one of those methods, I always say ways when I mean methods, and talking of ways. So one of the methods that we can get data from the field that a lot of organizations have been taking advantage of recently is through the Connected Citizens program, with partnership between local governments and WAYS. And because of that partnership, we can then take advantage of that data feed. And that data is available in the ArcGIS marketplace. And I can visualize that data in a dashboard like this. And normally, on any given day, this data looks something like what we're seeing here. And normally this area is chock full of red and there's all kinds of incidents, but this dashboard is still showing one, which is good. I was hopeful that we would see at least one traffic incident in this area, and even with limited traffic, someone still found a way to create an incident. So I thank that person for showing up in this dashboard.
Wait, so you're telling me there's traffic in Central Florida?
Even today,
wow.
There's still people driving around in Central Florida, and apparently there's a nice slowdown in this area here. But I wanted to say that this data could be used by dispatch or other resources within your organization to feed into other business systems as an input of records. So someone in WAYS reporting a pothole or debris along the roadway, or a car stopped around the shoulder could be then put into the system and shown on that map. So another way we can get data from the public is through a 311 system. And a lot of cities and counties have 311 systems, but some of you don't, and that's okay. And one of the ways that ArcGIS solutions have worked to help with that is the Citizen Problem Reporter. Oh no. It helps if I click on the right button. And so you can see here, we have magically been transferred to Raleigh, North Carolina, and I want to report a road problem within my dashboard. And you can see I have a bunch of incidences that have already been reported, but maybe I want to report a pothole, and there's a pothole that's already been reported. But one of the things I could do is I could click the heart button, and I could put some comments here like huge pothole.
Why are we liking potholes?
I love potholes, Keith.
Okay.
Yeah. But I could also submit my own problem, right? And let's say road not cleaned, and I could click on it, and I could put the details in there, like Keith dumps grass in the street. And because Keith can't say anything because I muted him, I can report it. And there you go. It's been submitted. So now I have that road not cleaned thing, and I can like it here, and I could see it through the entire workflow process. So in our live seminars, we would then switch to workforce. And because we're not live and because we're working from remotely, we thought it would be better just to play a video and talk over it. So I'm going to kick off the video. So here I am in workforce, and now that I'm in workforce, I can see all the list of all the things that need to be done. So here are all the assignments that need to be done. Here are all my large potholes and small potholes, and I can push those out to my workers. So I'm going to create a new assignment for Keith, and by either clicking on the map or putting an address in or clicking an existing asset, I need Keith to do a pavement condition index survey. So you can see in the drop-down list, you can see that Keith is working, and I can click on the map to provide the location of that address. I can set it to critical, and I can set a due date for the process and when it needs to be done. I can put a work order ID so I can attach it to my existing business system, and I could say something like, please do this first thing tomorrow. So once I create that assignment will then show up on Keith's Workforce mobile app. So here's Keith out in the field. He can see when he needs to do that work. You can see he's 489 miles away from that work, so it may take him a little while to get there. But I would really like him to drive 489 miles to get to that work order. So the first thing when he has options is he can navigate to an assignment, or he can do the survey of the assignment, and that's going to link him directly to the survey 123. So now that he's out in the field, he can start filling out the pavement condition index form and putting the recording surface defects and other things about that data. So as he's doing that, you can see he'll start filling out this form. He can put surface deformations or cracking or updates the pavement edge. And all of these things are going to help do a mathematical score that can be used to calculate the pavement condition index. And this was a workflow that was typically done on paper, and then the math was done by hand back in the office. But now Keith can do this work in the field and see that PCI score automatically calculated for him. So once he's out there, he could take an example photo like this of this alligator cracking that looks slightly like his screen. I don't know how he did that. And then one of the things you may not be able to see is at the very bottom of that photo is the pavement condition index has been recorded on the photo, and the timestamp of that has been recorded on the photo, so that later, if it was used for reporting, we could see where it was taken and how. Okay, so that's great for doing, that workflow is great for doing one-offs, but sometimes we need to do analysis to figure out how do we capture all the areas that we need to do potholes for. And so one of those workflows is Plan Routes tool. So I can set a starting point on the map, and I could set an endpoint, and we have 5 patching trucks, and each of those patching trucks can do like 60 stops in a day. So I don't know how long it takes a pothole to be patched, but let's say 5 minutes. But we do know that those crews can only work 8 hours a day, and then I can run that analysis. So one of the things I wanted to share with you is that this workflow takes 5 credits, or roughly 50 cents to do, and that workflow can then be used and be shared as routes, both in ArcGIS Online Maps, but also in a tool called Navigator. So we're going to go back to the field out with Keith and see that he has all of his routes for the week. And, you know, it's Tuesday. And so, of course, Keith is going to run his Monday pothole route, and that's okay. He'll just do Tuesday tomorrow.
I took yesterday off.
Yeah. And so here are all the potholes that he needs to do. He only has 68 stops to do in 8 hours and 13 minutes. But Navigator can be used with those routes to give me turn-by-turn locations and navigation to all of the routes that I need. And I can share those routes every week with my crews, right? So as those routes change, I can then do this analysis for them every week and make sure that they're doing the best job at routing to those locations so that we can reduce our mileage on vehicles, etc.
Whether they're connected or disconnected.
That is correct. And so I'm going to pause right here so I can breathe for a second and get back to the video. So this dashboard shows all those PCI surveys that Keith has done. And on the right-hand side, you can see I have reports from the field of small and large potholes. And those potholes are captured in the field by my field crews doing that analysis. And so I can use this tool to show where those potholes are by district or by other things, but we're going to show a tool that some of you haven't used, and that's Quick Capture for ArcGIS. So I have a project here for Keith. It's called Pothole Quick Capture, and he can use this project to capture potholes in the field, usually when he's riding in the passenger seat while someone else is safely driving. So he can report both small potholes and large potholes. So a small pothole will be captured quickly and it'll say pothole, but we've set up the large pothole to support photos and optional comments so he can write things like pothole, right? And submit that into the data set. And so one of the things that we've done is taken that quick capture and linked it to this dashboard. And by using hosted feature service views, we're able to take and update this data, not only in this dashboard, but also those data sets are going into going back into Workforce as assignments for the next day. So getting data from the field is really time consuming and can be expensive. And we can't just have our field crews driving around all day looking for potholes. So one of the ways we can do this is taking advantage of object detection using machine learning. So we could take a vehicle who's already driving around, like this trash truck, and put a GoPro on the front of it to capture imagery. And then using tools and photos, we can then use GeoAI to help us understand where we need to prioritize our pavement processing so that we can visualize those data in a dashboard like this. So we can take that data and analysis and share that data across our organization to proactively determine where we need to best utilize our resources. All right, Keith,
Thanks.
I appreciate the whole workflow.
Yeah, and we covered a lot, and we showed a lot of different apps. So I wanted to make sure this slide was on here, and you have a chance to see this to kind of review. So just to walk you through, let's start at the planning part. We could do this in ArcGIS Pro or ArcGIS Online and determine where we want to be able to where our work needs to occur. We used Workforce to be able to coordinate and dispatch our teams and crews out to certain locations. We could then use Navigator to be able to navigate, obviously, to those specific sites in order and use optimized routing if we need to. And again, as I mentioned, you can do this online or offline. It doesn't matter. Once we're there at the site, we can do our field work in a number of different apps. We showed you Survey 1, 2, 3 and Quick Capture. We're also going to see Collector in just a little bit. It would have been really difficult to show you Drone to Map. They wouldn't even let us do this when we had the seminars. We wouldn't let us fly a drone above all the attendees for some reason, some sort of HR violation.
I don't know why.
OSHA. Anyway, yeah. So there are a number of different ways we can collect data. That's really the point in the field, and then we can understand that using Explorer. And then we can monitor that data. We saw how we can view that in an operations dashboard. We could also use Tracker to be able to keep track of crews in the field. So Field operations are very complex, but we have a number of different apps to be able to walk you through that entire process and do this in a secure manner, right? So that only people that should have access to this data have access to it. All right, so with that, we'll go to our next poll question here, and let's see if I can, let's stop the share results, and we'll go to our mobile products. So we'd like to know from all of these which mobile products you're using. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this, and for many of you it's probably going to be more than one, so feel free to enter that information now. But again, there's so much here to help with this, and so many of you from a public works standpoint are using asset management third-party applications like CityWorks and Cartograph and Lucidity, or partners of ours, and that's great. And many of them already leverage a lot of this technology in place as well. So if you have those, great, you can still use these tools. If not, there are some tools ready to go that you can deploy through ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise. All right, so let's go ahead and share the results. And as I suspected, most folks are using Collector and Survey 123. I'm really happy, Will, to see this operations dashboard number. I think that's going to keep growing over time. And there's Will's favorite app, Drone to Map. And I think we'll see that as well over time. Okay. So let's go ahead and just to kind of wrap up what we saw there in Public Works. We used ArcGIS Online, or we could do this through Portal. And again, we highlighted some of those key apps that we use. One thing I wanted to emphasize, though, is I can use all of this content that I generate to put into a hub initiative page. We talked about leveraging this for community engagement. I can now put this into your tax dollars at work, or maximizing infrastructure investments. And be able to show where our work is, what we're doing, what we've done, and where we're going. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and switch gears over to engineering. And so you can see this photo on the screen. I'm sure many of you know the guy on the left, Jack Dangerman, the president of Esri. To the right, you may not know, that's Andrew Anagnost. He's the president of Autodesk. And in 2017, we announced a partnership between Esri and Autodesk, because we wanted to help users be able to do their best work. And so why is this important? Well, many of you work with an engineering department, and I would really strongly encourage you, especially if you do and you think, oh God, Keith, are you gonna talk about Autodesk? I don't do this, I can zone out. This is really important because, and I wanna emphasize why. Within the next 20 years, we're gonna see, estimates have shown that we're going to see about 2/3 of the world's population living in cities, which means we're going to have to build a number of different buildings, add to infrastructure every day. So for cities, their engineering department is going to be inundated, is probably a nice word to use for this. So they've got to be looking for ways to streamline their process, to plan, to design, to build, and to operate the assets. And putting data at the center and allowing users to use these applications they want to support their workflows is really going to be key. So whether it's in an Esri or an Autodesk product, the data and the information needs to seamlessly flow between these platforms so you can support your constituents with the tools that make things easier to use. So again, even if you're not using Autodesk products, the thing I want you to take away from this is understand that your engineers, if they're using Revit or Civil 3D, InfraWorks, AutoCAD, so forth, that's fine. They can work in their environment. What they're able to do now through a free add-in that we're going to show you is to be able to access your authoritative data that you provide in the enterprise environment and access it directly within this Autodesk environment. So, and then likewise, they'll be able to share their content with you. So you won't have to take shape files and send them to them or have them download something from an FTP site, right? They'll be able to work with that data directly within their environment. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Will and let him explain this to you in our engineering demo. Will?
Thanks, Keith. Mute. So I'm gonna figure mute out before the end of this.
It's a new tool, I understand.
Yeah, I know, it's tough. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen. and we are going to go someplace that I am not at all comfortable with, and that is CAD. And so you might not know this, but this is what ArcMap 10.8 looks like, and that's just a joke.
Don't do that to them. That's
Yeah.
not. Harry's
So
going to get like 20 more questions now.
yeah. So thanks, Keith. So I've opened up this Autodesk AutoCAD 2020, and part of what we've installed on top of our of this is the ArcGIS add-in for AutoCAD. And this ArcGIS add-in for AutoCAD is something that's been around for a number of years, but it's been enhanced in the last couple of years with a focus on updated functionality to support editing of features and other things. The other thing I would like to say is that this is just a number of the tools that have been added to the ArcGIS platform to support integration and tie-ins between Autodesk and ArcGIS. So I'm going to go ahead and click this button here, this real familiar button called Add Data. And so when I sign in, this is probably a view that you guys are all pretty accustomed to. I can see here's my living atlas and here's my content. And I get this reassuring picture of myself here that makes me feel good that I know that I'm signed in. But I also have my favorites here, and I have data like traffic markings. So I'm going to add that to the map. And that feature layer is going to draw in, and you are going to see it cache through and come into the map. And I can zoom and pan in the map and identify features within that, right? So I could select that and identify that pavement marking and see that within AutoCAD. But I can also add other data, right? So I have this 2018 ortho imagery. And so some of you might be saying, oh, Will, is this the Esri base map? And it's not. It's an imagery data set that was flown and published to ArcGIS Online. And I've seen a lot of customers in the last couple of weeks utilizing ArcGIS Online and the capabilities of ArcGIS Online for publishing data to the cloud to support their business workflows as they need access to different information across the board. So the last piece of data I'm going to add is my sewer infrastructure. And the great thing about this tool is that I can share and give that data to engineers or designers who already maintain this data, and it can be shared with them so that they can do their own edits across the data. So you can see here I have a couple of different things, right? I have sewer connections for each house. I have sewer laterals that connect to my main. I have manholes, and I have my sewer data. So I'm going to click on this sewer line here and identify it. And it may not identify, but that's okay. We'll just keep going. So one of the things that I need to do is edit my features, right? So in my editing workflow, I can click on my line. There we go. And I can see my attributes of my data. So I can see here I might be able to change it to PVC or vitrified clay or ductile iron pipe. In this case, it is vitrified clay, but I need to make it 10 inches. And when I do that change, I can apply my edits. And those edits are going to change. And then the other thing I need to do is to stretch my line down to that vertice to update. So now that I've done that, within CAD, my editing is kind of disconnected from my web features. So those changes that I made haven't been stored in the map yet. So I'm going to synchronize those changes and have those edits be updated. Okay, so it's drawing all my features, it's updating and synchronizing my sewer connections, and that's all being done, which is great. And I'm gonna pause here for a second and resume my share. And so just like Keith mentioned, we would be able to see this data in an app like Collector. And so in Collector, I'm able to do a couple of different things. I'm able to come in and click on the pipe, right? So here's the pipe. I can click on it and it's gonna bring back those attributes, right? I can see the gravity main. I can see it was edited. It's vitrified clay. It's 10 inches in diameter, and I can share that data. But the other thing is that while I'm out in the field is I can update that data and put that new pothole in. And so I can have my field crew put that manhole in, and it will share and update the map. All right, so now that I've done that, I can go back and I can visualize this data in the map. So I can zoom in, and you can see I have my new pipe, right? I have that new capability, but I'm still missing my manhole because that video wasn't there. So I can still edit my data in the web map here, and I can just click here, put my point in, put my cover type in, and add that into my web map. So whether I'm in the field or editing in a browser or editing in CAD, I can update my engineering data and share that data between platforms using web services.
All right. Thanks, Will. So just to highlight this again, we were using AutoCAD and listen, so please don't walk away from this going, well, the Esri guys said we need to start using AutoCAD. We did not say that. But what's important is that if you have engineers that are using it, the important thing is that you have a way now to engage these engineering departments without sort of these older ways of being able to send them data, right, through a shapefile or something like that. They can now update data using the data that you provide, and likewise, they can send that data back to you. So we saw that. Granted, we were doing that through a video because it's not easy to show mobile apps on Zoom, but the benefit is I can collect data in the field, and I can see this in 3 different environments, and it's live, and it's all part of the enterprise system. So if you have questions about how to do this, please contact your account team. If it's us, we'll be happy to walk you through it. If it's someone else, they'll be happy to walk you through it as well. But it's this is the important part, is that sharing data between you and the engineering department is now much easier than ever. All right, so we're going to go now to the next part, and this is Will's favorite part. This is his happy place. We're going to talk about land records. All right, so you know, in a lot of rapidly changing communities, the GIS staff, the mappers, and the local assessors are constantly on the hook to enter new deeds in a very timely manner, and they've got to manage those changes in property assessments. I'm sure you're seeing it. I mentioned I'm here in Birmingham. We see lots of neighborhood revitalization. There's always a brewery involved, and Will's been here enough; he can testify to that. But so in this situation, we're going to talk about how we have a brewery that's coming into a neighborhood and needs to expand, right? So we're seeing lots of old homes being renovated and new condominiums being built and so forth. So as the community changes, what does this mean for the staff workload, and how can we improve those staff workloads? So as GIS professionals, you can have a role in this process. And we're going to show you how you can amplify your land records. So with that, Will, your favorite demo, go to it.
All right, Keith, I will share my screen and we'll get to it. So okay, so here we are in ArcGIS Pro, and we're going to take a journey to a place that I've never been to before, called Sheboygan County, Wisconsin, and show how we can migrate their data to a easier editing workflow with the new parcel fabric in ArcGIS Pro. So one of the things that many of you asked is, how do I get started with this workflow? How do I get started with doing this? And we do that by starting a task. So for those of you that haven't used tasks before, they're kind of like a recipe on how to bake a cake. Or for many of you that have been exploring baking at home, or how to make some bread, right? So I'm gonna talk about some of the different workflows that we have. We have two different workflows. One of them is parcel fabric administration, and the other one is record-driven workflows. So administration workflows are the tasks that help you upgrade to a parcel fabric. So I could upgrade data from ArcMap. I could load my existing data by setting up the information model, and we have tasks that walk you through that entire step, right? So creating a parcel fabric, adding parcel types, and ArcGIS Pro supports custom parcel types, and then creating domains and doing all those things that I need to do to kick off that work, and adding fields, right? So I could do that, and I could skip that, and configuring attribute rules like Harry mentioned during the Q&A. So now that I've done that, right, I'm gonna go in and switch my map. For whatever reason, it zoomed out. Let's go map, bookmarks, not Harris County. Sorry. Okay. So here is my Sheboygan County polygons, and I've imported that into my parcel fabric, and I have this nice parcel fabric data set. And so one of the things I might want to do, like Keith mentioned, is I might want to bulldoze Keith's grandma's house right here to expand the footprint of my brewery. And to do that, I can do that by clicking and starting a record, right? So I'm going to create a new record, because all things in Parcel Fabric are managed as records. And then my record flight is going to be a merge. And I'm going to record it as today. And I don't need to, I could populate that, but for this demo, we'll just skip ahead. And so now that I've done that, I can go in to my workflow, and I see I have all these different tools here. And so I'm going to use the merge tool. And so by selecting two features, I can go in, keep my original features. I do not want to merge all of them. So we'll click here, and click here, and go back to modify, and see that I have two features I want to merge. And I'm going to call this one 592813208568551, and put it in my parcels, and I'm just going to hit merge. And so when I do that, you see a couple things that happen. The first thing that happens is that I have all of my data shows up, right? So here's my new parcel, 851. I have my existing parcels here. They've been moved into historic status. So I can keep my lineage of those parcels. But the other thing that you can see is that as I zoom, those labels are dynamic in what is shown. So imagine if I hadn't just done those, but I wanted to update all of my features, I can run another tool here called Update Kogo. And what this is going to do is it's going to update the tax line data set with the Kogo dimensions in my map view that I've selected. And you can see, instead of placing annotation, I can use arcade labeling functionality to label all of my Kogo lines, so that I can have a clean map at multi-scales, and those labels will disappear when I need them to, and appear and change when I go to different zoom scales with extended information. So another piece of data that many of our people that work in the tax office or the assessor's office have to deal with is condos. And you might get a condo plat that looks like this that has multi pieces of information that can be shared across the board. And by using a custom parcel type called condo, I can take and put in things like this upper elevation and lower elevation to visualize that data in 3D, right? So I could take that data and visualize it here and go and visualize that data in 3D, right? So what's cool about this data set is I can take that data and visualize it in ways that we couldn't currently see, right? So I could see commercial use condos or residential use condos or air rights. And by using 3D, I'm able to take that data that is all jammed up in this 2D map and not necessarily viewable. And even though I could slide through its ranges and slide through each floor, it's still way easier to do that in 3D, right? So if I just wanted to look at the first floor or the third floor, eighth floor, and so on, you can see how that data can be visualized in the 3D view. Okay, so we looked at 3D visualization and we see how powerful that is. Let's go to another tool that can be used by our assessment officials to help with assessing property. So a lot of assessors look at data like this, right? Here's all the sales data in a spreadsheet, and they spend a ton of time with formulas and doing regression analysis within Excel to visualize that data in Excel in a spreadsheet. But one of the things we can do in ArcGIS is visualize that data in insights for ArcGIS. And so I can take that same data and look at things like, hey, show me the sales on the map. And maybe instead of looking at points, I want to switch it to a heat map, right? Or maybe I want to look at things like sales ratio. So a sales ratio can be indicative of what might be occurring within my data. And so here's my sales ratio, and you can see I have these outliers here that might be reflective of data that would be foreclosures. So I could also add that foreclosure data as a map, right? So I could visualize it as a map, and it will zoom in. Or I could add that data as a heat chart. So I could look at year and month and do a heat chart to look at that data across the board. And so there we go, there's that data. I'm gonna zoom back in and I'm gonna show a couple things that can be really effective for your analysis. So one is I can click on this whisker here, and by enabling cross filtering on my maps, I can, in my cards, I can see the impact of where that sales data in those foreclosures might be occurring, right? And so I can see quickly where those hotspots are and how things are occurring over time. And it can make it really easy for me to visualize that data to understand what's happening within across my organization. So I've done all of this analysis, and I've said, okay, this is how I'm going to do it for this year. But one of the things I can do is in Insights is visualize the entire workflow that I just did and visualize that over time to say, okay, I did a box plot, I did an aggregation. So when I get new data, I can update those spreadsheets or new parcel lines, I can update that data. So next year I can use the same model so I can have repetitive analysis that can help me balance my tax rolls and improve public trust in the process.
Right. And so also when you get asked that question, how'd you do that? Right.
Yeah,
it's not, well, Will, I came up with magic. It's here's how I did it. And here's
well,
why
yeah,
it didn't
and
matter.
not only just how did I do it, but how did I do that last year, right?
Yep.
When in a year from now, I forgot how I did it because I didn't document anything because I just did the work that I normally do. or if somebody leaves the organization, you can say, okay, well, how did that person do that work last year? I can update that workflow.
Exactly. Well, can you go back to the cards real quick? And I just wanted to highlight a point
Yeah.
before we move on. So to me, this is we talked about location analytics being a key part of the Esri product strategy. And this is really where Insights shines. It is definitely not a traditional GIS tool. It's a business intelligence tool. We're looking at CAMA data, but think about this from, even if you don't deal with land records, think about the other business systems that you work with, like RMS systems. We talked about that on the crime side. Think about it from a permitting system on the planning side, asset management, and especially where you have these systems that are producing a ton of data. This is a way, just like the name implies, to gather more insight from that data that you may not get from that system itself. So again, just to be able to answer questions that you get on a timely manner. Did you have anything else, Will?
Yeah, I forgot to mention my favorite thing about Pro, and I wanted to make sure I shared that before we ended or wrapped up, or let you talk again, Keith. So I'm going to go to geoprocessing history, and there's a new schedule tools task in Pro. And what that allows me to do is set up a functionality to schedule a tool to run on a recurring schedule, right? So that import records tool, I could have run it and had it run at whatever interval I wanted it to do, because I don't want to do that every day. I could have it scheduled so that it ran daily, and it ran it every day at noon or at midnight or whatever it is. And so scheduling tools can be run against Python tools or a model or simple geoprocessing functions, and all that can be set up within ArcGIS Pro. Keith, are you? Oh, there's Keith.
Oh man, I have Willitis. I tried to.
Oh, did you mute yourself?
Nope, nope, that definitely didn't happen. So just to recap what we talked about, again, we were working completely in ArcGIS Pro 2.5. The parcel fabric, really don't have time to go into this too much, but suffice it to say the parcel fabric in Pro is much more forgiving and easier to implement and maintain than the old parcel fabric, which some of you may have used in ArcMap. What a surprise, we were in 3D again. But again, it's just part of the natural environment of ArcGIS Pro. Working in 3D is just part of it. And then again, we talked about using Insights for ArcGIS. We're not talking about replacing the CAMA system or any of your other business systems. But this is a way to be able to generate more value from those systems is by leveraging Insights. All right. So we covered a lot from a technical standpoint. I really want to encourage you just to hang in there for a few more minutes. I want to talk about from the vision standpoint, one of the things that we need to focus on as GIS professionals. One is I want to focus on the concept of a geospatial strategy. And so this is absolutely critical in this day and age to the success of a GIS. It's no longer the case where the GIS is housed, for the most part, is not housed in the basement in the back by whatever spare office that we have. It is becoming more and more an integral part, a mission critical business system of how cities and counties and states and organizations, utilities and so forth, how they work. And so because of that, we need to have a more complex geospatial strategy. Many of you have created strategic plans, and I would say that really a geospatial strategy is more of an evolution of that. And so what it means is that you're understanding the business challenges within your organization, that you articulate and justify the resources that you need to have, both from a financial standpoint, staffing resources, equipment, infrastructure, and so forth, to be able to accomplish these goals and understand what are the solutions that we need to solve these problems. When are we going to deliver them? What do they look like? How are we going to maintain them? And how do we leverage location intelligence to be able to help make our existing business systems more effective, and to be able to answer questions for this? So you can see the URL up here for this. This is typically at the user conference, this is about an hour-and-a-half session, and
Yeah, I
I'm
put it in the
wrapping it up
chat,
in about 2 minutes.
so that
Right,
everyone can
great.
find it.
Yeah, so go.esri.com/gs, and we're updating this. And just to give you an idea of these, creating these roadmap discussions where you kind of lay out what we're going to be doing, they're really productive. Just to give you a quick kind of peek behind the curtain on this, Will and I did one of these back in January in the Florida Panhandle. We visited 13 departments over 2 days. And I got to be honest with you, one of the most inspiring parts was we met with the administration. We met with the deputy administrator, sat in. And I can't tell you how excited he was just to learn about, okay, here's where we can use GIS and it can help us with this decision making, and it can help optimize these workflows, and it can help us get more value out of this business system. And when we got back, before I could send a thank you email to the client, Will and I both got a thank you email from this county administrator who, again, was just saw the value of what GIS could do. And so to that point, I would say this, if you don't think that especially for those of you that checked off I'm in state and local government, if you think that your your county administrator, your city manager, maybe even your CIO don't understand GIS, you might be correct in the sense they don't know how to use the software, but I am telling you from having been to dozens of conferences with city and county administrators, they know about GIS, and they know what other cities and counties are doing, and they want to be able to do more with it. And so that is pretty much universal across the board in that sense. So again, a geospatial strategy is going to be key for you going forward to help you articulate and define and defend why you need to undertake certain projects. It's no longer, well, Keith said it was a good idea. It's, we need to do this because it will help public works do their jobs better. It will reduce ticket times for work orders and so forth. So this is a critical component to what you do. And then along those lines, once we have the strategy, we need to make sure that we're implementing best practices. This is from our patterns and practices team, architecting the ArcGIS platform. This is very much a living document. This is the March 2020 version you see up here on the screen. But this goes through, and it's not a terribly long document. I think, 17, 18 pages. But we update it 2 to 3 times a year, talking about the best practices for implementing across the ArcGIS platform for an enterprise architecture. So see the URL on there, take it, bookmark it. You'll want to go back to this over and over. It's a PDF that you can download for free. One of the things that is emphasized to Will and me and our colleagues here at Esri is professional development and the concept of lifelong learning. And I wanted to emphasize that as well to you as GIS professionals. I get it. I know how difficult that can be, especially with your day-to-day tasks. But especially in this time, when a lot of us are working from home and may not have as much of a full plate as we had before, there's so many development options. So there are training and learning plans that can lay out over a certain amount of time what you might need to learn and get up to speed on. Say if you want to focus on mobile solutions or geoprocessing or working with imagery and so forth. We have teams that can put together these plans, and we just have tons of resources. And whether you realize it or not, as clients of Esri, you actually have a dedicated training consultant. And so we'll be happy to bring them in and they can walk you through. And I've seen the plans that they create. They're very thorough, and they can put these together for you to give you a strategy that can be part of your geospatial strategy, right? To be able to say, this is what we need to learn and this is what we need to focus on. So I want to bring this up as an important tool just to make sure you understand the number of resources that we provide to you. One thing that you may not be aware of, this is a small group that typically belongs to this, but this is our early adopter community. And it's an opportunity for you to be able to try out Esri technology in its pre-release and its alpha and beta stages. So we understand you're not going to want to try out everything, but if you would like to sign up for, say, trying out the new version of the image analyst extension or ArcGIS Pro or anything along those lines, you can go to our early adopter community page, sign up. And this is really important to us. As I've told many of you that I work with over the years, we don't run a GIS department on the side at Esri. We rely on our users and our community to be able to tell us what works, what doesn't work. right? So this is a great opportunity for you to really help drive how our releases go. Also wanted to make sure you were aware of this in the Charlotte region, and each region has this. I'm focusing on Charlotte because that's our region that we belong to. Each of the regional offices has a hub that's available, and the idea really is to provide a two-way engagement platform where you can connect with the Charlotte office or your other local office to stay engaged, stay informed, and stay inspired. So be sure to visit the site. I put the link up here in the top right-hand corner. And you can follow up to receive updates about GIS events that I'm sure will start back up soon, hopefully in the very near future. We also do meetups, excuse me, that are virtual. So it's a great opportunity to see what's coming on in that regard. One thing that's new that we wanted to make sure you're aware of, I mentioned GeoNet. In GeoNet, we have a coronavirus community. And you can see the link for that as well, and you can just search for coronavirus within GeoNet. But it's an opportunity for you to network with other colleagues that are implementing these solutions, have questions, have ideas, bounce ideas off Esri staff and partners about the solutions that we have and the solutions that you would like to see. And again, just a reminder, we talked about this during the Esri, during the solutions section here, but we do have the coronavirus response resources that are available here. So just as a reminder, the response solutions, the hub initiative template, and the hub page that has a ton of resources available for you. All right, so with that, I want to get a poll question in here, and I talked about ArcGIS Hub, and I'd be really interested to know how many of you have deployed a Hub site. So I'm starting the polling now, and if you can emphasize that. I know it's a relatively new application, and it's one of the GeoEnabled Systems that we talked about earlier. So the Hub is part of ArcGIS Online, and then we have a Hub Premium that gives you access to named users to be able to deploy through that way. All right. All right, and so these numbers will change over time. This is about what we expect and usually what we see, but we're seeing more and more growth in this area. All right, and then lastly, we wanted to focus on this. This is really important. Again, we talk about the vision. I wanted to kind of piece all of this together. The goal for us really here is to make sure you get the most out of the GIS technology that you have. When we introduce some new things here that you may not have as part of your enterprise system, we understand that, but really we want to focus more on what you have. And again, the key is, and you see this word across the slide, business, business, business. Understanding the goals, the challenges, then being able to provide solutions and articulate and show the value of GIS is absolutely key to your success as a GIS professional these days, okay? And you've got to be able to increase the benefits of the GIS and increase the amount and the importance and the intensity and the strength of your GIS. No one here has to justify to me and Will or Sarah Lynn or Harry or Nicole the work that you do. We understand it, but we want to make sure that you are addressing the needs of your organization. And so if you need help, please let us know. That's why we're here. That's how Will and I are measured at work. That's how we're all measured at Esri, is how successful we make you using our technology. So with that, I wanted to thank you again for your time. I just wanted to let you know, just a reminder, we're going to send you an email to the email address you gave us with a link to the recorded webinar and also a survey. So again, the survey is really important to us because it lets us know what we can't cover everything in the ArcGIS platform in a 3-hour seminar, let alone two and a half. So let us know, like, if there's something we didn't show what you wanted to see, or if there's something you wanted to see more details of, let us know. This is really important to us and helps us drive how we do these next year. Well, thank you all very much for your time. Again, we really appreciate it. We hope you got something out of this, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.